in terms of artists, right? They
Hmm.
have been breakout artists, right? Like people who started in the Indian industry and now are working internationally, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But the same thing to writers, I think there's probably one guy, right? Who's Rambi, right?
Yeah.
Um, why is that the case?
I don't know. So here's the thing, right? I don't think any Indian writers, me and you included, are yet at a position where we can write for foreign
Yeah,
publishers.
yeah,
The kind of American stories that are required, right?
right.
We are not evolved enough to write for American audiences. We are
Mm,
more uh, evolved to write stories for our audiences, and even then, some of us are not adapted well enough to the audiences as well.
mm,
So to write, Ram, in fact, went and lived abroad. He's had
yeah.
training abroad. I think he went to do his mechanical engineering or some other chemical engineering. I'm not
Mm,
entirely sure abroad, and he stayed there.
mm,
So I think he's had some sort of training in dealing with foreigners,
mm,
and he's kind of grown up in that environment. So
right.
I think it's easier for him to go
He's
out.
gotten those sensibilities already,
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
yeah, exactly. His sensibilities are okay. For you also, you are in Singapore. I don't know what kind of environment you're growing up in, or
Mm,
you've grown up in the past 4 5 years.
mm,
So maybe you can write for Singapore audiences. I don't know, but I think that's the essential problem. Unless you're in a certain geography, right? It's very
mm,
difficult for you to imagine life as uh,
right.
a person there and write for them.
It's like what they say about the film industry, right? You need to be in Bombay to
Correct,
be
correct,
part of. Yeah. Mm,
correct. But that's more also because of logistics and stuff
mm,
like that.
mm,
That being said, a lot of British writers have written for American comics. I don't know how that is.
yeah.
Britain and America are more or less same in sensibilities. I don't exactly know.
Mm,
So all these big writers like Alan Moore and Garth Ennis and all of them, they're like they've written for American comics and they've moved
correct.
there and stuff.
Correct.
So
Correct.
I don't know how that works.
Mm,
At least in terms of Indian comics, I don't think the sensibilities transfer very well.
mm, mm. But there's also this sort of okay. I mean, going back to Ram, right? If you look at the some of the stories that he's putting out, at least, right?
Correct.
Those are they are Indian stories, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
They're about gods and things like
Correct.
that, right?
Correct.
And they are sort of getting the appreciation from the Western audience also.
Correct. Correct.
So is it a question of the kind of stories we're telling, or is it the nature of storytelling itself, right? The style of storytelling or the genre or the treatment, right?
Yeah. So essentially, you're asking me if his stories feel Indian, and that's why people of the West are reading it, or
No, more like
somehow.
see, they know it's an Indian story because
Correct.
it talks about
Correct.
asuras and all of that, right?
Correct.
But
Correct.
then is it that his treatment of the story is more sort of catering to a Western sensibility?
Yeah. 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 I
Is that
think
okay? Hmm.
so. He is writing for a Western audience, and he is sort of Western, even in the lens that he takes to
Yeah,
tell
yeah,
the stories.
right.
I think that's there. I think, like, even if you read that story about his graffiti's wall, I think,
Yeah,
where he's writing about a boy in the Indian slums,
yeah,
it doesn't feel like a boy in an Indian slum, because a boy in an Indian slum would be probably out playing with his friends
hmm,
or getting sick or, maybe dying also. So
hmm,
I don't think all of that comes into his stories. His
hmm,
story is more aspirational.
hmm,
His
hmm.
stories are more, people can break out of this and get out there, which is
Right, right.
a very good message. But
Hmm.
I don't know if that's the reality of things around here.
Right, right, right. Hmm. Okay. It's kind of again, I keep trying to contrast things with the film industry, right? Because
Ah,
in the film industry now they say that the more rooted your story, the more international it is, right? Like your triple R and things like that, right?
ah, ah,
They're not pandering to the Western audience at all, but
correct,
the Western audience have celebrated it for
correct,
whatever reason, right? Whereas in comics, it doesn't seem to be exactly that way. You still need that Western lens to cater to a Western audience. Because
correct,
so I kind of feeling like there is a difference between literature and like visual
correct.
medium, right? The way people appreciate things.
I think even books, like if you take our books and sell it there, they won't do well
Hmm.
unless you really market the shit out of it. I
Right.
don't think they'll do very well.
Hmm.
Um again, because of the audience. I mean,
Yeah,
we are
yeah.
here to read a certain kind of thing. So
Correct.